Okay, next up we've got two chaps from Sage. We've got Ross and Chris, who are going to be talking about fail.
Welcome, guys. Just want to introduce myself and Matt. I'm Ross McDonald. I'm the development team lead at Sage Manchester down at Exchange Quay, just down the road. I'm going to be just doing a brief talk today, and that will then be followed up by Matthew Turner, not Chris, that was on the original notes. So Matt is the technical architect at Sage Manchester. Myself and Matt have worked on a project together, which I'll talk about briefly. And we've obviously got lots of failures to share with you about this new project that we've been working on. So the team size that we've typically been working with is a size of 20 people in total. So on this greenfield project, there's 20 people, of which is split kind of into two separate Scrum teams. In those Scrum teams, there's several different disciplines. So we've got likes of QA in there, some testers. We've got business analysts. We've got tax specialists, developers, and user designers. So there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong in that environment. Without the necessary collaboration and that lot that's required across those different disciplines, you can get into a lot of confusing situations where almost you can be talking on one particular level, someone else can be talking on another level. You can go out of a meeting and think, yeah, we're talking about the same things, and something completely different comes out. So I can't stress enough, really, the importance of the collaboration piece. And that's going to be one of the main things we'll be focusing on today. So, like I mentioned, we've been kind of fortunate to be working on a greenfield project. This project's been in the web environment. We've typically been focused very much on desktop before that. And we started out with the best intentions, and this was talking January 2014. And there was kind of no baggage with that code, so completely fresh, completely new. And going forwards, Matt will then touch on the failures of this project that will come up. Thanks, Matt. So here we have a lion. I've represented a lion here in the sense that that's you guys. You guys have the pride, you have the passion, you want to find the mistakes in the code, whereas in the likes of myself and Matt, we're the monkeys. We like to write some code, we like to, express ourselves in the code and then give it to you guys to test. Now, typically, we've worked in organisations before where these monkeys get a bit brave sometimes. They'll write some code, they'll chuck it over the fence into the lion's den, and then all of you guys will then just rip it apart, tear it to shreds, leave it in pieces on the floor. But typically, what us monkeys will generally do is only throw that code over on the last day of the sprint, typically about 5 p.m, ready for you guys to then just rip it apart the next day just before the sprint review. So, yes, the lion's proud and strong. So one of the things that we were aiming for with the vision is that we wanted continual releases. So we wanted to be able to write some code, get it tested quickly, and then deliver it out into the real world. And we're typically looking that, our vision was that we wanted to deliver it on a daily basis or even an hourly basis. Quick, short, snappy fixes, get it out there. But we had a few problems in that area of how do we get into this, into this cycle? And one of the things that we've actually focused on is we need the appropriate unit testing. We need the appropriate scenario testing. We also, for all of this, we need good CI coverage, continuous integration coverage. And then off the back of that, behavioural driven development. So Matt will go on shortly to talk about those sorts of things and the fails that we've come across there. But one thing I want to really focus on, and it really comes back to the point about the collaboration, is this point here: joint team ownership. It shouldn't be the monkeys in one cage, the lions in the other area. We should be together as a team, and we should be collaborating on a daily basis and breaking down those, those mental barriers that we may have of treating them as us and them. So I'd like to hand over to Matt now, who will talk about our failures.
We'll talk about the failures, about how, or our failures on introducing the behaviour-driven development process. I just wanted to briefly introduce that process and how we think it's going to help us achieve our goals and achieve the vision that Ross just talked about just then. In a general application lifecycle, a feature usually starts out in a specification written by somebody, and then a developer implements the feature, and then a tester will come along and test it by writing an automation script that could look something like that. This is kind of pseudo Ruby or on top of Selenium or Capybara. So a few observations on that. It's a little bit difficult to see what the intention of the test is. It's kind of what it's testing is getting lost in how it's doing it. And it's not something you could really imagine a QA person sitting down with a developer or a business analyst and really kind of thrashing out what the feature's supposed to do. It's not really a collaboration piece. Now, there's lots of ways we could improve its readability. But what BDD does, in particular Cucumber, which is a tool we're using, is it kind of takes that to its logical conclusion, which is how can we write something that's human readable, that literally anybody could read. We can get testers involved, business analysts and UX involved in that conversation early on. So instead of that, we're going to this kind of approach. I don't know whether everybody can read that from the back. So it says a scenario is a new invoice appears in the invoice list. Given I am on the create invoice screen, when I save the following details, then the invoice appears in the list. So it's human readable, and it does exactly what it is on the exactly the same as what it has on the left-hand side there. But the difference is people can talk about this. We can use it as a talking point. We can also write this up front before the feature's implemented. So a QA person could perhaps find issues before the feature's been implemented and help out the developer. Business analysts can do the same. So it really becomes a talking point. But we still want to maintain the ability to automate. So what happens here is the given step there executes the first few steps on the left-hand side. The when step does the next bit, and then the last step there is the assertion at the end. So we get all the benefits of the automation just with a nice human readable format that we can write up front. So we've been trying to implement this over the past year on this project, and this is about failure. So this is what went wrong. We've got quite a few issues. I'm not going to talk about all of those. I'm going to focus on 4 of them. Which are those 4 there? So testing at the wrong level, automation, that's not a mistake. We'll come on to that in a second. The definition of done, and team buy-in. So, as Ross said, it's a greenfield project, the one that we're working on. So there's literally nothing we could blame a failure on other than lack of experience, and we'd never done it before. So looking back on it now, there was lots of ups and downs, and kind of this is the story over time. So this is a journey. So we started off actual kind of like project development in July. And we're heading up, but over time we hit kind of key stages where we realised we'd failed at each of these points here. So this is the journey I want to take you through this particular project. So the first one was team buy-in. So we thought we were doing quite well, but we quickly realised that this is how a lot of the developers were feeling. They're kind of sat there thinking, this is not my job. I'm not interested in this. It sounds like a bit too much like test. So we were enthusiastic, but not everybody had bought into this. So yeah, but it's very much not my job. What I think the lessons we've learned from this is that we need to get buy-in from the whole team very early on in the project, in particular developers, because this is a new process that developers won't be used to. Some QA are used to writing specs and scenarios like this, but developers are less used to it. So it's really important to show the benefits of this process of introducing features very early on, and scenarios very early on that we can then translate into tests that we can use to execute and test the application. Cool. Okay. So we reintroduced the BDD process just after that, when we realised we'd failed at that point. Things are looking up, so people are writing features together. We've got UX, BA, devs all talking to each other. It was a beautiful thing. We've never seen it before, and it didn't last for very long. But we'll come on to that in a second. So once we'd done that, we thought we were doing quite well, but then we hit the next problem, which was a couple of months later, which was the definition of done. And I mean, we were very strict at the very beginning. We were very enthusiastic. This was the perfect process. It would not go wrong. And one of our definitions was it's not done until it's automated. So we had to literally automate everything before we could claim any story points in our process, which was great because we had vast amounts of test coverage. It was fantastic. But what we did was forget to ask ourselves whether the feature was in the right state to be automated. So it was a very new application, very early doors. We're having to create demo pages just to test areas of the application we hadn't actually kind of fully formed yet. And in order to do that, we had to make it automated. We had to automate it. So it's too much too soon. And I think if we'd, as the application matured a bit, we literally couldn't keep up the level of test automation we needed to, based on our definition of done. So if we could learn anything from that, it was don't be too rigid around the definition of done. It can change as the product matures. I think we were too. If it doesn't work for you, then just change that definition and allow it to mature. And make pragmatic decisions about when you're going to start automating the UI. So we kind of relaxed our definition of done at this point, and we started making more progress, which was great. And then we thought everything was going great and nothing else could go wrong. And then we realised the next stage was testing at the wrong level. So what we had at this point was a lot of unit tests, a lot of automation tests, which was great. It did take quite a long time to run the automation suite because we had so much. So what we really wanted was this kind of shape here, which is the standard testing triangle. So lots of unit tests, less integration tests that still run quick, and automation tests at the top. But we got so excited that this is what we ended up with. Which isn't quite the right shape. So we're still doing integration tests, and they remain a valuable part of the application. But yeah, we've got vastly too many automation tests. So I think if we learn anything from this, looking back, it's that we need to ring fence time and plan in time to do more of these, and push tests down from this UI level down as far as possible. I know that a lot of modern UI tools are actually getting very, very good now at, and much quicker than they used to be, but still I think we're not quite there yet, so moving tests down as much as possible to areas that may have already been tested by a developer anyway. And also another important point is the collaboration. So Ross talked about it just before, but it's really important that rather than thinking that we have to, as testers, we have to test everything at the UI level, if we can collaborate with the developers and have an honest conversation, we may be able to find that actually a test has already been done, a feature has already been tested so thoroughly, and all the edge cases have already been covered off. There's perhaps no need to test it at a higher level. And it's only by having proper conversations early on in the process that you can really iron out those overlaps. So we fixed that problem by relaxing the amount of tests we needed to do at the UI level. We thought that everything was perfect. There was nothing that could possibly go wrong now. BDD was the future, and we'd sorted it. And then we hit the last problem, which is very close to now. So it's just last couple of months. This is automation. And what we mean by this is this was really a problem that had been there. It'd been plaguing us throughout the project. It's only something that would, by fixing all the other problems, would kind of reveal this new problem, which had been there all along. We just couldn't really see it. We thought there were other problems that were impacting us. But this is a standard problem, I think, in any kind of automation attempt at automation. So what we had at the time was something that was okay. It ran overnight. It took a very long time, so about 6 hours. It generates nice graphs, so we know we can plot trends over time. It was beautiful. But what we didn't have, if you can imagine the amount of code that can go in that 24-hour period, there's a lot. And if something breaks it, there's no way to, well, it takes a very long time to track down the culprit. Blame allocation is a very important tool, and we found that we couldn't blame anybody because we didn't know who it was. So what we really wanted was some way to identify which change had broken the build. The other problem is that something that we'd introduced way back at the beginning, where we'd created a lot of tests that got out of date, but because the test suite took so long to run, we really didn't know whether it was because we're out of date or whether we'd just broken it. So there was a lot of failing tests that would got this maintenance burden. So what we've learned from that is that we have to treat automation as a feature of the application. It's not something anymore that we can just do it as best we can. It's something that's really at the forefront of the development effort. So spend a lot of time trying to build up that automation infrastructure, and set your goals high. So aim for getting some feedback from your automation suite within 20 minutes. Something that a developer can accept as an acceptable time to wait. So we're on the way up again now. We're waiting for the next failure, but we're on the way up. We have about 70% of automation scenarios running on the back of every commit. We get feedback within 20 to 30 minutes, which is good. And we know we can blame people. We know who's broken things. But yeah, like I say, we're on the way up, but we're really not quite there yet. Because what's happened is we introduced a BDD process at the very beginning. We've been through some failures. Towards the end now, we've kind of lost trust with the development team. They don't quite trust that process. Even though we've got the things in place now we think we need, we're going to have to build that trust up again. So that's kind of where we're heading now, is trying to reinvigorate. To finish up, really, I think a lot of the problems that we face are people problems. So getting people to communicate, getting QA and developers to actually talk and collaborate on things, and trying to reduce that misunderstanding. I think BDD is a great process and something that we definitely want to continue with. I think we could have, thinking of Lee's points, we could have actually at the very beginning, at the very first failure, just given up. But we've kept trying, and I think we've improved that process over time. And I think we're now at the point, it's taken a year, we're now at the point where I think we can do it. And hopefully, now that we've pointed out some of our problems and our failures, hopefully you'll be able to avoid them. So, thank you very much.